Hi there. We've made it through modules 1 and 2. We're still working with the same databases. We got Pratt Last, we got Lab 1, we got Lab 2 and Lab 3, and they're the same databases. We won't make changes until we get to Module 4, where we will maintain Pratt Last throughout the semester, but when we get to Module 4, we'll change the reinforcement assignments. There will be different names, and I will provide you starting files for those. Okay, for Module 3, like all the other modules, you need to read this thoroughly away from the computer. You want to take your time to make sure that you get the concepts. But this one is all about maintaining a database. So making sure that all of the fields work the way they should. Maybe you've got people who have employees that have left the business, and you need to make some changes, or for school instructors who have retired. Hey, that's me. Things like that. Or you've decided that the design that you originally created doesn't really fit where you are now, and you want to make some changes to it. You want to delete some things, but you don't want to delete one at a time. You might want to do a massive deletion. So that's an action query. I mentioned it some in chapter 2, in module 2, the last video, but we really get into those in module 3. And we're going to create something called a single value lookup field and multi-value lookup field. So I will spend a little bit of time talking about that. And we're going to specify referential integrity. So let me just say this. For this module, this is the one that will tell you if you have something really wrong with your primary 2 tables. For instance, if I told you in my feedback after module 1 that you did not have the field type correct and you didn't go back and fix it, I don't continue to grade you down for it. I've already taken the points. But when you get to module 3 and you're not able to enforce referential integrity, then your databases, your tables won't work together. They won't work. You're not letting the tool work for you, and then it's going to kill you. So just make sure you use the feedback that I provide. And I know it will seem problematic, but I try to provide very detailed feedback, so you have a list. And I advise students to print out my feedback and then make a little checklist. Yes, I did that. Yes, I did that. Oh, I missed one. Let me go back and do it. Because I want you to have a good understanding of where you've gone wrong and have the database prepared for the next level of work. You're also going to be using a sub-data sheet. That's a data sheet inside a data sheet, just like it sounds. And we're going to filter records. We're going to do a lot in this module, and it's all about maintaining a database. And one of the first things it has you do is create a split form. And what that does is it puts I'll show you what one looks like. Let me show you what a split form looks like. I'm very visual, so I will oftentimes all right, and I name them so that they make sense. So this is the account split form. If you look at it, so what this does is it gives you the form. You remember the account form we made in module 1? It gives you the form on the top and the data sheet that comes directly out of the table on the bottom. So you can do one at a time. You see there's only 15 pieces of data. I can just rotate through. As I rotate through in the top, it goes through each one, but down at the bottom it just goes down a row for each one. In the real world, you won't have 15 pieces of data. You might have 15,000. And so if you wanted to search, you could search over here by name and it will find what you want. Or you could use the city query or any of those queries that we build. Or you can build a new query for a new kind of search. So that's one of the first things it has you do is to create a split form so you can make some changes. You're going to make some changes, I think, to some names. I can't remember. It's going to tell you how to add records and how to update contents of a record. You're going to use some action queries to do that. and you're going to do some filtering. So some common filtering. You guys know what filtering is because you do Google searches all the time, and I know I do when I get ready to choose a hotel or a Airbnb or Uber. I always filter how many people I want, so so that the feedback I get back fits what it is I need to have. So I mentioned this in the last video, but I did want to show you how you use action queries. You use them to make really massive changes, big changes. So an update query is one where you're going to change all records that satisfy whatever the criterion is or the criteria is, and so you don't have to change each data record individually. It will change them all at one time. So there are other action queries. There's a delete query, which you will do. There's an append query, which you will do. And there's a make table query, which you won't do. They used to have the make table query in these assignments, but I think, as I said, they just removed some of those requirements because it was just a lot of work to get done to make sure we covered all 10 modules. As it is, we're skipping number 9. There just wasn't enough time to do everything. So those are what you call action queries, and they all have a little action icon. See, the icon looks different. The other queries are table. These are select queries. These are called select queries because you selected the table. These are action queries. They will always have the little exclamation point. Okay, and then you're going to create something called validation rules, and let's look at some of those. I'm going to, in design view, let's look at the account table. So you see some things. These are the things we had here in the beginning, but now in addition to the field size, we also have a format. This greater than means put all of the data in uppercase letters. The caption we did that in module 1. Here we're saying that something is required. There must be an account number, and it won't let you enter anything unless you at least have an account number. So there's some specifics here. Let's look at some. All right, here's some validation. I'm looking for the validation rule. Let me see where we put it. All right, here's one in the current due. The validation rule is it must be equal to or greater than or equal to 0, and it must be less than or equal to 10,000. So that's the rule. And you just type it in like that. It'll tell you how to type it in, but don't make it hard. If it said that it must be between 1 and 3, you can type between 1 and 3. You can just type between 1 and 3. You don't have to use the less than or the greater than symbols. You can just type that. And then make sure, though, that the validation text is in sentence format. Must be at least $0 and at most $10,000. I don't care how you type it. I think they told you that in the book, what verbiage to use. But in the other assignments, just make sure you use a complete sentence. Let me show you how that works. So that's for the current due field. So let me show you what happens if I try to change the current due and it doesn't fit that parameter. Let me find current due. And it said it had to be greater than 0, had to be at least 0, and less than 10,000. I'm going to change this to make it 11,000, and I'm going to tab, and I get an error message, and there's the sentence that's in proper English. Must be at least $0 and at most $10,000. So that's how that works, and it won't let you change it. It'll just, let me just take that out. It'll just stop you. It would just will not let you proceed. Okay? So you're going to be doing some validation rules and validation text. Don't skip that. You're going to change some field sizes. You're going to specify formats. I've already shown you that. You're also going to have some default values. Let me go to change it to design view. You're going to have some default values. A default value is if you have a database and you know that mostly your clients are service in the service field, then you can say to save your entry time, just have it always populate with SCR for service, and that way you don't have to change it. Let me show you how the table works now that we put a multi-valued, we have put a multi-valued field in. We've added a validation rule that says it must equal SCR, or it must equal NON, or it must equal IND. And then here in plain English it says it must be SCR, NON, or IND. Let me show you what that looks like in the actual data sheet. Now you see the SCR is already pre-populated. It's a default value. That means it's in there all the time. If I was going to enter somebody new, I'm just going to make up somebody. I'm going to make this RU1223. I'm just making this up, and I'm going to make it that it's Ruff. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Systems. I'll just make it systems. And you know what? I'm not even going to put an address. I'm just not going to put an address. But now I'm going to say it's a I can't remember now what the is. A non-service, I think it is. Now you see I have options. I can choose SCR or non or industry. I think that's what those are. I'm going to leave it as IND. And then I have some options. Look at these. These are multi-value. These are lookup values where you have to choose. You're forced to choose between these three. You cannot choose more than one. These, you can choose all that apply. I know you've done some forms like this before. You choose all that apply. I'm going to choose those 4. Look what happens. Alright, I'm going to delete this record because it doesn't belong in this database. And it's asking me, you're about to delete one record. Are you sure? Because you cannot undo it. Yes, I want to delete it. But you see the default value is there and the options. So those are the things you'll be doing for all of the databases for this module. It's going to have you change the way the database, the data table looks. I didn't save that. In fact, they don't tell you to save it, but you can. It just shows you that you can make some background colors different, the font size different. You can make it look jazzy or any of those things. But let me show you the referential integrity because that's important. It's a database tool, and you'll see it under the relationships. And they start discussing this on AC 162. But here are the relationships. In the account table, you remember the account number was the primary key, but the account manager number was the last field in that table. And the last field in the table is, generally speaking, the primary key in the related table. So over in the account manager table, that's the primary key. There's only one account manager, but that account manager might serve many accounts. We call that, let me spread this out so you can see, a one-to-many relationship. One account manager to many accounts. One to many. That's the infinity symbol. It can be thousands. You can well imagine Duke Energy has hundreds of thousands of customers, but they don't have a separate account manager for each customer. They have, I'm sure, account managers that handle thousands at one time. So that's sort of the reasoning behind this. So that's how these relationships, so these things have to be exactly the same. The account manager number must be set up exactly the same as the account manager number in this table. Otherwise, they will not connect. You will not get that relationship. It's asking me, do I want to change the layout? I'm going to say no. It's just asking me that because I spread them out so you can see them. So you're going to do that, and that's actually going to be the last thing that you're going to do. And then they're going to have you take a look at what happens when you enforce the referential integrity, how it changes the output of the data. And it's going to have you sort and order some data at the end, and you'll do this for each database. So again, you have garden, one naturally, Lab 1, Garden Naturally. So we're just doing more work on that same database. Those are the queries we had. You're just going to do some work in the tables that are there, and they're going to have some effect on the financial report. And then on the museum gift shop, you're going to append it to another table called additional items. That I will provide that data file for you. You will need that, and you're going to append it so that you're going to end up with more data in this module than you had in the other, because you're adding the data from the other database. And you see now you have this action query to delete a record. You see it has a big red X and the exclamation point, and an update query. Those only work one time, folks. Once you delete it, you can't run it the second time because you've already deleted the item. So don't let that confuse you. Alright, and we'll take a look. And you're also it's gonna have you go through a backup, so you know how to back up a database. It's sort of a good idea. I have most of mine set up to back up automatically, so I don't save the name, but they'll walk you through that process. And then cache marketing is here. It's the last one. In fact, this will be the last time that you will work with the gift museum, the cache marketing, and I forgot the name of the other one, the museum gift shop, because you'll be using other databases with module 4. And so you'll be doing something similar here. You see you have one action query here, and you'll be making some of the same changes with validation rules, and you'll be, if we look at the referential integrity, you'll be establishing relationships. One to many. I think that's it. These are easier every time now because we are getting more savvy as we